Good evening, everyone. Hi. My name is Theo Wisniewski, and on behalf of the West Allis Youth Commission, I would like to welcome you to our 2015 Candidate Forum for the West Allis West Milwaukee School Board. Before we go any further, if you guys could turn off your electronic devices, that'd be awesome. Because the Youth Commission has so many questions for you, we have slightly modified the format. So you'll be allowed 90 seconds to answer the first question. For any additional questions, we ask that you limit your questions to your answers for 1 minute. Please pay attention to our timekeeper, George Sanchez. We will rotate the order of answers this evening, meaning Ms. Sujecki will start first for the first question, and then for the second question, Ms. Kern will start. We will not have any opening statements this evening, but if there's time at the end, you guys can have a closing statement.
That'd be fine.
So thank you. I'd like to introduce our candidates. We have Sue Sujecki, Patricia Kern, Stephanie Emmons, and Wendy Dubois. Our first question will be asked by Stephanie Danner.
How would you deal with the issue of overcrowding in our district's high schools, and what should the maximum enrollment be at each school? Would you support geographical boundaries to determine which school a student must attend?
Wow, you started with the big one, huh? You're asking about the boundaries? And, do I support having a boundary and the overcrowding of the two high schools? Okay. Yes, I support having a boundary. I believe that all of the schools should have boundaries, and I do support the idea of having intra-district transfers so that all of the schools are open to all of our students. So I think we should set up a boundary, and those boundaries, then you would work on space available. And from that point, it would be open to all of our district students first. And then hopefully, although I think that the law might prohibit us from not allowing open enrollment students be treated exactly the same way, but yes, I support boundaries. And feeder schools, so that we would have feeder schools. Students that are in the feeder school would go to the school, the high school that it feeds to. So, yes.
Would you like to repeat the question one more time?
How would you deal with the issue of overcrowding in our district's high schools, and what should the maximum enrollment be at each school? Would you support geographical boundaries to determine which school a student must attend?
Thank you. The attendance areas, Hale is 1,600, Central is 1,700 students. With the next year's projected enrollment, Nathan Hale looks to be at 1,800. And if we wanted to continue choice by our own wishes, it's not possible. The building is way over capacity. Something has to be done. We have attendance areas for both Central and Hale, as well as all the other schools in our district. The Hale Central boundaries were last set up in 2006. The dividing line is the freeway, the I-45 freeway, and it has been closer to Central than that in years previous. It actually was about 94th Street. The way it is right now with that differential creates more students going to Nathan Hale. I believe we need the attendance areas. I would like to see us continue with choice because the schools have quite different programming. Their academics are the same, but Central certainly has a larger influx of tech family consumer ed courses, and Hale has a little more in the college prep area. The field and sport areas are very different, but if we're going to have to deal with the capacity levels, which just is not possible, we've got to make some kind of choice. Though we're looking at a lottery presently, we've also looked at the possibility of moving that boundary line, and hopefully we'll come up with a few more choices before we vote next week.
I do too support the idea of boundaries at the elementary, intermediate, and high school level, and I support boundaries that make sense based on geography, based on attendance, and based on projected attendance. I know that right now we're in the middle of a crunch with hail and with the high school enrollment projected to be too high for next year. It's unfortunate that it's gotten to this situation where we are in the 11th hour trying to figure out a solution for almost 200 students that want to attend Hale next year that probably won't be able to. I did understand that the boundary system has been in place for about 10 years, and fortunately we haven't had to use it due to the ability to have choice. I know the board has been working to try to keep choice as an option, which is something that I would continue to support. I do know that we have to figure out a solution very quickly. There have been the ideas of boundaries, the ideas of feeder schools, the ideas of a lottery. I don't envy the decision to have to make that immediately, and I don't think anyone is 100% going to be happy with whatever decision is made right now. I do think that we have to figure out a way to better the reputation of all of the schools in the district so that we do not have this kind of problem, an influx of students at one school in the future years. Hopefully whatever solution we're able to come up with is one that we'll be able to stick and we'll be able to work forward from that.
Right now, we're concentrating on the high schools, but in essence, we have overcrowding at all levels, elementary, middle school, and high school. So it is a problem that is starting at the bottom line and going all the way up. We need to address it now, as it just escalated into, we're really concentrating on all schools, like we were mentioning with Hale and Central, but we need to start looking at the bottom numbers as well with, as I mentioned, elementary and middle school. As we stated before, overcrowding is a concern not only for the students, but for the parents and safety and behavior issues and such. So with that being said, we need to look at the maximum capacity. I've already looked into some schools at what the capacity limits are and looking at it just in the sense of, for instance, a fire hazard and such. So we need to look at it for the sheer essence of security and also for education purposes. When children feel safe in the school, then they will excel. So I would like to work on the proposal that the board already is looking at, is offering at least a grade level open at each school, so in the case that people move into the neighborhood. Other ideas, of course, would be, as we talked about, sibling preference, a lottery system, yes, neighborhood border boundaries, neighborhood schools, and maybe even a satellite school.
Thank you for your answers. For the continuing questions, you will now have 1 minute to answer your question. Our next question is from Helena Lassiter.
Many required courses have too many students. How would you alleviate this problem? What do you believe the maximum class size should be for a required class?
Am I next? All right. Required courses are overcrowded. Okay, a little surprised at that. But our class sizes right now for the academic areas, and are we referring to the high schools?
Yes.
Okay, are about 30. We try not to have them exceed that. That is our target. And I think 30 is manageable, but I would say that depending upon the type of course offered, that may make a difference. There may be some classes that really are only conducive to having about 16 to 18 students, depending upon work labs, science labs. But target usually is 30. The physical education areas, they are much larger, and that's kind of designed around team sport activities within those areas. But the target is 30 students, and if there's a problem, certainly willing to look into that.
Ms. Emmons.
I was going to say 30 as well, especially at the upper grades, and for the required classes, seems like that's sort of the boundary level. Anything beyond that starts putting safety and capacity at risk and starting to give the teachers an inability to really teach and to connect with each of the students if they have to connect with more than 30 in any given class period. Obviously, at the lower grades, it's a smaller amount, but in the higher grades, I think 30 sounds about right. Additionally, some of the classrooms where you have more hands-on learning, such as a lab of some kind, or where there are more discussion groups, I would see that having to be capped at a smaller amount, really depending on the class size and the subject that needs to be taught. But I can't imagine being in a classroom that has more than 30 children, 30 students per classroom. That seems to be the max at most of those grades, most of those classes. But again, to keep that in mind when certain classes need to have less.
Okay, I'm going to go with 29. Again, I'm looking at sheer numbers in a classroom setting. I have younger children that are in elementary school, and they have the SAGE program, which I've witnessed and watched, not only in this district but other districts, with perhaps the SAGE size as well as the larger size. And what I see through observation is for the younger kids, about 18 seems really good, depending on perhaps some classrooms even have an aide in for that age group. For the older kids, you guys, if you're going on to college, your classroom sizes can vary anywhere from small group discussions of 20 to 30 to hundreds. So learning academically, I think 29 to 30 is a good size. But I think the real good element of that is that you can break down, if it is a larger class size, if you have a real good creative teacher, you can break into small group units because you do a lot of that in a work environment and school.
Thank you.
One more.
There's still one more. Yes, we try to keep our high school classes at 30, with the exception, of course, of music and gym. But a teacher can allow to increase the class size. It has happened that a chemistry class or a very special class, an AP class, that if they have 31 students, they don't want to not have a student. With the teacher's permission, they will increase the class size. But generally speaking, your high school classes and your intermediate classes are 30. Your 5th and 6th grade can be 30. And then our elementary are, because we're all SAGE schools, is 18. So yes, I completely support the idea of limiting our classes to 30 or less. And there are some special, in some cases, that there's classes of less than 30.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Our next question will be from Stephanie Danner.
What is your greatest fear about being elected?
Ms. Emmons, you'll start.
Having to come back here in 3 years and answer all the questions again. I don't know that I have a fear. My challenge is going to be to try to listen to as many people as possible and try to really do what's best for the families and the taxpayers. And that's more a challenge than it is a fear. But to take on that responsibility and to be a voice for families and taxpayers is something that I'm honored to being asked to do, but certainly it's a huge responsibility, and I think anybody would be, would feel that responsibility upon their shoulders coming into this.
I look at it as the fear of not doing it. And what I mean by that is taking it on full force and just engulfing the whole aspect of it, not only with the school, but with the community, and looking at it as one. And by doing that, going out there and not always winning the popularity contest is what we talked at the last forum. It's a job. It's going to be a tough job, but it's going to be a special one because it's going to be working with the community, whether it's in a group or one-on-one. So I don't look at it as so much as a fear, but I look at it as the fear of the unknown of what if we don't, the what ifs. And so I don't want to look at that. I want to look at it go forward and say, why not, instead of what if.
I don't have a fear, but what I do have are concerns. And my concerns are regarding curriculum. What I want is the very best curriculum for you, our students. And I want to be able to merge technology with traditional education and how best to provide that education for all of you to make sure that you have the career opportunities. So it's not, I guess it would be a fear of failing you as students, not doing what is needed to make sure that you have the educational opportunities that I want you to have.
I too don't think it's so much a fear as a challenge, but I won't deny that when we get hot button issues that really make you think about what will be the best solution for all, sometimes the hostility is greater than you might imagine. And certainly that was for the board meeting Monday night with the Hale Central boundary. And as we looked over I've been on the board 24 years. I have seen that capacity swing both ways with the schools. Central has been as high as 1,800 students. Hale the other way. It changes about every 10 years. And this is the first time we've actually had to act upon restricting students from coming into the building. And you don't want to disappoint people. That's hard to deal with, but it is what it is. I've been through the closure of West Milwaukee High School, dealt with 4 referendums that have not passed in trying to get an adequate middle school. Past Horace Mann, we finally utilized West Milwaukee High School as a middle school. Those were very contentious issues. Human growth and development was very, very contentious. You have those issues. That's just what's going to come with it. The easy part is walking into the classroom and being with the kids and what they do each and every day.
Thank you. Our next question will be from Dylan Jensen. Oh, sorry, Helena Lassiter. Are you sure? No. Thanks, Mayor.
There has been much debate about the use of technology in education. At what age do you think kids begin to benefit from the use of technology in the classroom?
I think we start with...
Oh, Ms. Dubois, you start.
I love that question. I have a young preschooler at home. She's in 4K right now. However, I say preschool. She's in the preschool recreation department class as well as 4K. It's very important to take a balance of education in the classroom and at home. One of the first things that I learned from a teacher when I started my first child in school, she said, the parents are the first teachers at home. And that really gave me confidence. You know, I thought, well, of course I'm the mom, but again, hearing a teacher say, hey, we're teaching at school, but they start at home. As for your question with technology, we have to really look at the whole gamut. Children develop, obviously, emotionally, socially, at a different rate, and we have to really look at technology-based with learning aptitude, play, emotional. And so to start them that young, I really think we need to up the age. I mean, they're doing technology at 4K. So again, I would like to see it a little bit in elementary, a little bit older.
Would you repeat the question?
There has been much debate about the use of technology in education. At what age do you think kids begin to benefit from the use of technology in the classroom?
Well, I'm going to be surprised with my answer, because this week I was at Hoover School and I was watching kindergartners show me how to code a program. Now, I would have thought that's impossible, but they were doing it, and I don't know if you've ever heard of Angry Bird, and I certainly had not, but Angry Bird had to get to its nest, and they could show you exactly how to code, which is developing critical thinking skills. So even though I myself would not have supported iPads for kindergartners, I did see some value. You heard my concern when I talked about curriculum and incorporating technology into curriculum, and we need to relook at it. We need to re-examine how we are putting in the curriculum, and we need to be able to talk to our teachers. I would be listening to our teachers, our instructors.
I think most every age benefits by technology. It's a matter of how much it's used, because it's important for children and adults to use social skills. To just contain your world to the computer, the iPad is a problem to me. But at the same time, what we're trying to do, making that the tool of learning, certainly as an engaging element for every child. And the key for us as the board is trying to find the right tool for the right age level so that they can maximize the most of their learning. We have the iPad at the elementary school. We also have it at the middle school and high school. I'm not so sure that what we're using at the high school is as beneficial, having the iPad there. I think we've got to focus more on the computer, and I think we just have to realize it's a technology world, and any of you, as you look at how engaged you've been with computer games for your whole lives, technology is a wonder. It's marvelous. It can do wonderful, wonderful things, but it's up to us to craft something that really is beneficial with each subject area learned, and technology certainly has its place in the classroom.
I have a third grader. He's been introduced to the iPad since 5K. I think there is value at introducing technology at every age, in every grade level, at every school. I think there is value in having multiple learning platforms for every student. I think that there needs to be a gradual introduction of technology for students, so we start introducing them at a younger age and we start monitoring their use. We're watching to see their skills develop as a complement to their traditional learning, not as a replacement. Technology cannot replace excellent teachers. It cannot replace small group work. It cannot replace one-on-one learning inside a classroom. But it does allow for children to develop certain skills. It does allow them to explore other platforms. It allows them to grow as students.
Thank you. Our next question will be from Helena Lassiter. Ms. Sujecki will be starting.
Oh, it's me.
If you could, what would you change about Act 10?
What would I change about Act 10?
What can we change about Act 10?
We are allowed to work with Act 10. Act 10, what it did was it limited bargaining to dollar amount, to the gross national product norm for pay increases. But it didn't change the being able to work with your teachers. We have a teachers union in West Allis, West Milwaukee, that we respect a great deal. And we work with them, and we bargain with them, and we respect their interests. So the fact is that although Act 10 might have changed legally what you do, our teacher handbook pretty much stayed intact. And we have a very high regard for our union. So we don't really need to change Act 10. to respect our teachers or our staff or any of our staff members.
I don't think I could answer that question too much better than what Sue did. There, it's unfortunate the way Act 10 came down that it generated such hostility, but I think we've been able to work around it well as a school board because, as Sue said, we just really do respect the teachers, their work. We realize it is a profession that requires collaboration. And that's the one thing that does concern me about Act 10. It focuses a little more on the individual, on the merit, performance, and there's nothing wrong with that by any means. But it's also really important for our teachers to work together collaboratively as they work with the students. So I think that's probably the one obstacle I see.
I guess you kind of have to say sort of the same thing. We do work well with the teachers here in the district. I do see a lot of respect amongst teachers to administrators, to the principals and to the families. I would have liked to have seen, again, some better reception and some better communication about Act 10 when it was happening for the families and for the staff. I think, as Ms. Kern said, there was a lot of hostility that came out when the act was proposed, and to have a greater understanding of what the overall impact was going to be for our district, I think would have been something I would have liked to have delved into a little bit more. So perhaps more education and more communication about what was going to happen or what our options were would have been something that I would have tried to understand better.
Again, the heated debate, that's what stays fresh in my mind. So we need to take into consideration the teachers, again, what we were talking earlier about their performance level and their abilities and their knowledge, and also their relationship with their students. So again, appreciating what we already have, meaning with family, administrators, and teachers. We really need to get a good support system and back up overall with the teachers, what we feel are their strengths. So I just, again, it was something where we weren't coming close to finding a conclusion. We need to really look at it and the overall impact that it has on families, teachers, and students.
Thank you.
Our next question will be from Jack Rindall.
What should the policy be for high school students possessing and using personal electronic devices during the school day, and how would you enforce it?
There is policy that stands. In fact, we just changed it this year on bring your own device. Initially, as we put that policy in place to advance technology into the classroom, we didn't see it coming how much students would abuse it. And they can work around it, and they can, if they want to use technology well in the classroom, we're trying to give them every option possible. But unfortunately, some students abuse. And so the bring your own device has been altered so that it cannot be used during the class day. Now, at the same time, we certainly want it to be what is the desired teaching tool of the teacher. That's important. And that's who the control should be with, the teacher. Depending upon what their need is for what the subject area is taught, that's where we extend the latitude. Through that policy, though it is restricted, if the teacher feels there is a necessity for a student to use something such as a cell phone in a classroom, it will be allowed. But it should be at the discretion of the teacher. And that's where the policy was written at this time.
I was just discussing this with somebody over Facebook earlier today. Again, we're not going to have less technology going forward. Students are not going to have less technology. We're not going to suddenly tell you you can't ever have a cell phone, or you're not going to have an iPad or some kind of smartphone. However, there is a policy in place for how you can use those devices at school. And the teachers and the staff need to be empowered on when and where those are acceptable in their classrooms. If they say that it's acceptable at that moment to use, fantastic. You follow the teacher's lead. However, if the teacher and the staff have said no personal devices in the classroom, no personal devices on the desks, then those are the rules and regulations that have to be followed. And it's up to the teachers and the staff that they should be empowered to dole out punishments as as seen fit if those rules are not being followed.
Thank you. Just a few years ago, a policy that was established was like the one rule warning. If you were giving a warning and you disobeyed, you would lose your electronics for a year. Ouch. So I think what we need to do is, I know we're, in a technology society, and obviously we learn with technology and from technology. So what we do perhaps in the workplace, I work with teenage coaches, and when they come in to teach gymnastics, here's the bucket, place your phone in the bucket. And I know they've done that at public places. Back in the day when I went down to the Oprah show, same thing, you could not get on the set with anything. So that was more of a security measure. But again, it's something where that would empower the teacher, then she's not worried about having to babysit the classroom and the electronics. So if you obviously need them during class time, it's something that it's the community bucket, get your phone out. Again, I think it boils down to,
When we allowed personal devices, or we set up the first policy to allow personal devices, was before we approved use of the iPads. So then when we went to the one-to-one iPad, there really wasn't a purpose for the personal device. At the time, we thought that personal devices, your cell phone can be a calculator, it can be a host of different avenues for connecting with the internet. But with the addition of the iPad, there is no purpose for a cell phone. And under the current policy, it is totally up to the teacher to control whether or not both the iPad and the cell phone. They're not supposed to have cell phones in a classroom during the class day, but they can use them before, after, and lunchtime.
Thank you.
Our next question will be asked by Tyler Eglund.
The question is, what book are you currently reading?
I'm currently reading for the third time To Kill a Mockingbird. I'm getting ready for, I forgot what it's called. Go See a Watchman, I think, is the long-lost prequel that they just found by Harper Lee that is being produced and published later this summer. So I'm getting ready to read that as soon as it comes out.
I have to honestly say, my children are in the reading program at elementary school, so I have been reading A to Z. Dr. Seuss has been really popular this month with his birthday. So we're big on getting our reading calendar, so I've been doing a lot of children's books reading. But I really enjoy mysteries, and for the life of me, I can't think of the name, but I just finished a couple months ago. I read in the summer. Patrick Swayze, I read both of his books, and they were just wonderful attributes to his life, and basically it was my time to get away and to escape into the world of reading. Like I said, I'm with the children reading their books, but my neighbor was like, "How do you find time to read?" And I said, well, I'm, hiding out in the back porch doing it. I do like to read in front of my children also, so that they learn the importance that we don't just live on computers, we do read. So I read with them, and I do read my own individual things.
Well, I'm kind of with the group, but right now we've been doing Dr. Seuss, so I've been big on Dr. Seuss. But my own personal book, my husband just finished Patent, and I'm going to be reading Bill O'Reilly's book on patent. And I had read his books, and I also have The Greatest Generation that is done, and I want to, I have it on my table, but I haven't picked it up. I do a lot of magazine reading. I do a lot of educational type reading, and so that fills up most of my reading time. So by the time I go upstairs, that book that's sitting next to my bed very rarely gets opened. But I do want to read Patton.
I don't have a lot of personal time for reading a book either, because my time is consumed with catching up on whatever latest article and periodical is coming out on certain educational topics we're following on the board. My reading pleasure is with my 3 younger grandchildren. They are 5 and 7 and 8, and we read a lot of children's books together. They read, I read, and kind of nice to go back to that kind of material.
Cool. Thank you.
Our next question will be asked by Carly Weigel.
I don't know where we are.
Wendy.
Wendy.
Putting money and other restrictions aside, what is the first thing that you would like to accomplish if elected?
What I would like to do is look at the needs of the schools and of the neighborhoods and basically the children at large going to the schools. So putting money aside, I would like to rehab the schools from elementary, middle, and up to high school level. I'd like to create a fine arts program. We've been talking technology, which obviously is strong in the world, but I still say we need to have a better balance of technology, talents, and anything else that children can excel at. So again, I'm looking at, let's create sports programs, educational programs, and fine art programs to really look at talents for everyone involved. I think it would be neat to do some more a community center, and that's where we're divided with the schools. I think with the community center is what we really are in need of in West Allis to help with the schools and the community as a whole.
There's 2 areas. My passion is curriculum. I happen to be the curriculum chair right now, co-chair, and so my focus is curriculum. And what could we do to improve curriculum? Not necessarily technology in curriculum, but curriculum and teaching curriculum. But I'm going to steal something from Pat because she had such an outstanding answer the last time. And that is, we really need to look at our facilities. We really need to look at the infrastructure of our facilities. So I would be backing up and taking a look at doors, windows, floors, desks, the infrastructure, because we need to spend some money on our buildings.
As much as I feel strongly about that, I think the most pressing issue we have on our plate is the attendance areas, the boundaries, the buying of lane this past year, and making capacities appropriate for the overcrowding of the students we have within the district. So the most immediate need right now is identifying what's going to happen with Lane and what's going to happen with Lincoln Intermediate School so that we can address the overcrowding at the elementary and make sure that Lane is utilized with greater than 200 students in the building. That's all it's got in it presently. And resolving the Central Hale boundary issue with peace so that the students are really happy about their choice.
I think there's 2 things as well. These are all great answers, by the way. Not that I wouldn't want to do any of those things. I think one of the first things is to really work on communication out of the district to the residents of West Allis, West Milwaukee. I think there's been some trust broken in this area, and I think one of the first things I would do is try to rebuild that trust and rebuild that communication and get people engaged in this community again, and get people engaged in the school and get them to fight for the children and to fight for what they want to see happen in this district. And by doing that, then to review all of the schools and review the curriculum at all of the schools and to survey the teachers and see where we are lacking and what we can do better to bring the district back up and improve scores and improve the children's experiences and the students' experiences and getting kids better ready for post-high school life. And I think between those two things, that's where I would put my energy.
Thank you.
Our next question will be asked by Courtney Hall.
Do you believe the districts function sufficiently under the current tax cap? If not, please elaborate.
Ms. Sujacki, will start.
Do I think that we efficiently work under the tax cap? Yes, I do. I do think so. I think that there is I don't like what's going through Madison right now, and the idea of they promise a certain amount of money per student, and the increase was supposed to be $75 per student, and that's being taken away. But generally speaking, West Allis has functioned well under the tax cap of the 50% property tax and 50% state aid. Well, it's 47 and 47 and federal funds. But by and large, I think that we have done all right under that.
I'd like you to repeat the question, please.
Do you believe the district functions efficiently under the current tax cap? If not, please elaborate.
Okay, I'm assuming you're talking about state aid formula and what money we get, what revenue from the state, right? Okay, I think it's a formula that's very broken. If you look at the major expenditures of the state and where the money is going toward, the schools get shortchanged. The formula is not equitable. It is a problem when it comes to serving the amount of students we do, putting the technology in place, which has had to come in these recent years, trying to deal with the buildings we have. I mean, we own 20 buildings, and there is just no way we have the money available to deal with the capital improvement needs, much less the situation of how old our buildings are. We have a number of buildings that are earlier than 1940, and I don't see any hope for replacing those buildings anytime in the near future. So, no, I think there's got to be a better formula, and I'm waiting for the day that happens.
Ms. Emmons?
I think the district has done okay with the current formula as it is. As Ms. Kern said, the formula is outdated, and as the needs of students change, it definitely needs to be revised. With as much focus as this country puts on education, there's certainly, as Ms. Kern said, shortchanging students and families. And with the current situation as it is, we do the best with what we have, but there's a lot of long-range projects that are not going to get done under the current situation. And until something changes big, there is not going to be any hope for that. We have to just continue to muddle through as best we can, doing the best with what we have until something bigger happens.
Ms. Dubois?
Yes, we have to look, it just seems like it's one of those tough questions of budgeting and reallocating. I think what we need to do is find out, again, being that I agree with everyone they're saying with it being outdated, it seems like we're just forging so far, so fast ahead with some aspects. Other areas are kind of being put on the wayside. So it's tough when you're stuck with a limited budget as such. So we have to just turn it around and do some creative problem solving with that and look at other areas where maybe we can cut back on something that's excessive spending and then put the money towards something that's more of a high priority. So it's just, again, reorganizing and looking at the whole picture.
Thank you.
The next question will be asked by Amy Lopez.
What, if anything, would you do to expand fine arts classes?
Ms. Kern, you'll start.
That's a good question. I would actually like to see them expanded. We've had to make choices of cuts, and the fine arts are one that I think we have shortchanged a little bit because we've dealt with lesser dollars, just as we talked about in the last question. And I think the fine arts bring a really good vehicle to the student to utilize in their whole academic experience. So that's something I want to see gone. If I could improve it, I would. It kind of depends upon where those dollars are at, but certainly I'll do everything I can to support it and keep it where it's at, maintain it.
I would love to see a fine arts program expanded. I would love to see fine arts as a focus at some of our schools. I would love to see all different types of arts being explored. Obviously, we need money to do that, and that's something that we would have to do some creative budgeting in order to allow. But I think that the benefits far outweigh any negatives there in terms of what fine arts brings to a district and what fine arts brings to a student. It allows people to develop their personality and their sense of self, and to forge friendships and learn things about themselves that they probably wouldn't learn through other means. We're very fortunate in grade school level where we do still have a full fine arts program at the grade schools, but absolutely these children are finding their love of music and art and dance and chorus and theater at a very young age, and we need to do everything we can to reinforce those talents and engage them.
I thought you'd never ask. I look at it, the possibilities are endless. I would like to be one of the pilot programs. We took it running when we were the SAGE program and the Next Generation. That's a whole nother outfit. But where I'm going with this is we really need a collection of education. We don't want to just steer in one direction. We need to also look at everything with electronics, fine arts, and the whole gamut. I think with something like this, when I say pilot program, I'm not saying just taking it and going 100 miles an hour with it. We need to look at the different areas of maybe after school fine arts, if it's not during the school day. We could look at some other areas of like the Waldorf outdoor nature conservation. So you can really go, the ideas are endless with something like this. There's other ideas with like a pet therapy that I know some other districts have worked with. So again, I'd like to expand that.
Both of my children play the cello, and Andy ended up to be first chair by the time he graduated from high school. They were artistic, and that was incorporated into their creativity, and I think it's what makes Andy the engineer that he is. The arts expands your mind. It's so important. When you go to the musical concerts, and it doesn't matter to me if it's music or if it's art or if it's drama, all of that is what makes you what you are. It allows you to expand and be the creative individual, that creative side. That and I wish one of our students wants to be a psychologist, and I don't recall which, but the idea that that it would work in your mind and open up opportunities. I would support anything that expands art.
Thank you.
Our next question will be from Katie Tour.
I don't know where we are again.
Stephanie.
Ms. Emmons will start.
If money were not an obstacle, what is the one place on earth you would most likely like to visit and why?
One place on Earth?
Yes.
Okay. Making sure it's an expansive universe. I've never been to Europe, so I would love to go to Europe and take my son. We're big history buffs in our house, so to be able to take him through a world history class in Europe would be fantastic, and get to see, go to Italy and go to England and just really explore our forefathers and where they came from and what kinds of obstacles they had. That would be a once-in-a-lifetime kind of trip, and I would love to be able to take that someday.
I love your questions. This, again, reason being, it's great how we're using our minds and our imagination in school, and with that, Africa is right up there on the top. I don't think I'd ever come back. I've never been to Africa, but it's something that I talk fondly about my daughters, and we read the books and look at the pictures, and just the outdoors, the animals, the color, just everything about it fascinates myself as well as my children. I think there you can feel free, and it just seems that there's just a magical aura about it, that it's just the way life is supposed to be. Taking your strengths and using the outside world to make you a better person.
It's not where I could go, it's where I've been. I had the wonderful opportunity to go to Norway, and we are of Norwegian heritage. And to see the longboats that the Vikings traveled was inspiring to me. And to think that my forefathers came over, not necessarily on a longboat, but being able to be in the Longboat Museum. And then my son studied in Prague. And so we went up, we had a river cruise up the Danube. And we were walking on a road that the Roman soldiers had marched on. And for some reason, the idea that Roman soldiers had marched on the road that I was walking on was so awing, to be in the castle or behind the castle that King Richard had been captive in, and to hear the stories, or we were where the Sound of Music had been made. I guess I'm very lucky that I've had an opportunity to see a little of the world.
I have not yet seen all the 50 states. So I would concentrate on the United States, and I would like to do Hawaii. Always wanted to go to Hawaii. Just interesting how it became our last state. It's beautiful, it's paradise, a nice getaway. If I was to focus on the cultural aspect, it would probably be Egypt and the pyramids. I think they're fascinating. Those would be my two dreams.
Thank you. Our next question will be asked by Carly Weigel.
Would you increase funding for and add or eliminate any co-curricular activities?
Ms. Duval, you'll start.
I think that is the threshold to what we need. And yes, I would create funding. As for increasing, that's a scary word at times, but we'd have to look at it and allocate it. I think the extracurricular activities are crucial, not only to children, but to adults alike. Our recreation department is phenomenal. I work there, but also seeing other rec departments in the area and seeing maybe some of the programs that they offer, they look up to us in West Allis, West Milwaukee. And that is such a refreshing, and when I'm out talking with other directors of rec departments, I feel so proud for what we have here. So yes, we need to continue it, grow it. Again, let's ask the youth and the adults, what are your special attributes? What are things that you would like to add new programs? So let's work with the budget and be creative.
My sons played soccer, so team sports are, I think, important. Sports bring a community together, And whether it's football or whether you happen to be a central student and going to the basketball game that's coming up and being able to cheer on your team, hoping for it to go to state, or whether it's the extracurricular activity, we're expanding our gymnastics team, whether or not it's the art things, art classes, which are still co-curricular. Those are all very important aspects of a student's life. I can't tell you how many articles you've read about why, that a student stayed in school because they were part of a team. So all of the aspects are important, and I would support funding of whatever it takes to keep them going.
I support the co-curricular activities, and it's not something that the board has ever really been challenged with to cut too much. There's definitely beneficial, there's no doubt it generates great school spirit, and whether it's sport activities or it's fine arts activities, creating the musical, doing things in the debate and forensics area, I think those are all really vital. It's important that we make sure those co-curricular activities appeal to all different interests, not just sports. And if there was one thing I'd like to advocate for, it would be academic decathlon. I've seen that done in other school districts, and I'd love to see that brought here. We need to be doing something like that. My disappointment is how many students are not participating. And I can say that with confidence because my teacher, my son is a teacher at West Allis Central High School, and I've asked him about this often as I see the diminishing of numbers of kids that are not participating, and why? And he says, it's hard work, Mom. It's hard work to devote what you have to do between your studies and so many kids going to work now, and then there's not enough time to do that co-curricular activity. But do I want to see them given up? No. And hopefully we'll find a way to accommodate that time.
Ms. Emmons?
Extracurricular and co-curricular activities are very important for students, from a grade school level through high school, and even extracurricular type of activities for grown-ups. I mean, I'm in a book club, and there's just all kinds of things that just rounds out your life to be a part of something other than just your class and your studies. So yes, I would want to make sure that we have enough funding to continue the co-curricular activities that we have, to continue the funding for the rec department, to survey and ask and say, what are we missing? What are the students not getting at all levels that we could add? What are the adults not seeing at the rec level that we would want to add to drive people's passions? The only thing that I could think of is to add additional funding for safety, in terms of with athletics, to ensure that there is safety and safety training and development of that at those levels, so that by the time students are engaged at a very high impact level, that they are prepared, their bodies and minds are prepared, and that we have adequate staff to address that.
Thank you.
Our next question will be asked by Tyler Eglund.
Would you support having a full-time band and choir director at both high schools? Why or why not? Sue?
Okay. Support a full-time choir director?
Band or choir director?
Band or choir director. Well, if the numbers support the full-time band or choir director, of course. I mean, right now, the numbers are not quite there, and I believe that the choir director, I think, is shared by both Hale and Central. And the band is not. The band is at each individual high school, and then is shared by an elementary or an intermediate school. But it goes by numbers. It goes by how many students participate, and if in fact the participation was up, then of course we would do that.
If the numbers warranted it, I would absolutely want to see it be full-time. I think some choices that are being given in those subject areas have lessened. And as a result of that, the opportunities for the teachers to teach a more full load are not there. And I think that's something we might need to look into. The other issue that we have is lessons that used to be taught by the choral and band and violin and orchestra directors. And we found modifications to that, and that was a cost-saving expense. Is it wise? No, not necessarily. Those are the hard choices you have to make. But I certainly would like to see us encouraging as many students as possible to take advantage of the musical program, and we will hopefully continue to keep supporting it with teaching staff that's needed to service those students.
We've been talking a lot today about fine arts and fine arts curriculum and offering fine arts programs. Again, if we have interest at the schools for these programs, then we would love to have the staff available. Again, if there are not enough students that are interested and want to engage in these types of lessons and music classes and band and chorus, then I can understand why some positions have been shared. However, there's something to be said for having someone on staff full-time to be a recruiter and to be the, rah-rah cheerleader to get people engaged. Sometimes those are the people, boosters are the people that show the benefits of what being involved in band and chorus can do. So if there's an opportunity to make those positions full-time, I would think that people would want to review that and research whether or not that's in best interest of the district, and certainly try to engage more students in those programs.
Back in the day when I was in high school at Hale, band was huge. So it's something where we've got to step back and look at times have changed, but some things stay the same. And I want to give all the support and credit to keeping it increased. So yes, I would agree with a full-time. I think what you'd need to do with that is utilize, I believe Stephanie mentioned about with the middle school, but utilize the teacher not only as being maybe a recruiter, but starting the younger kids. We do have my daughter's in violin. She started in elementary, is in middle school. So use that as a platform that get them involved in learning the violin or music in the elementary that continues on through middle and high school. Whether it's electives, but part of it is how it's being perceived, and I think we've got to really put a little bit more oomph behind it, just to create that dynamic and keep it going strong.
Thank you.
Our next question will be from Dylan Jensen.
Who is the one person in history, living or dead, you would like to meet and why?
Well, that's a tough choice. Probably John Kennedy. Find him a fascinating person who's done a lot to change the course of life in the United States, especially surrounding people values, humanity. I think he would be a fascinating person to me.
There's so many different ways to go with this. Okay, I'm going to throw two out there. One is Woodrow Wilson, because my son is obsessed with him. He thinks he was the greatest president that ever lived, not just because he attends his namesake, but, starting the League of Nations and getting through World War I and just losing a wife and in the middle of it, getting remarried. I mean, there's just so much fascinating stuff about Woodrow Wilson. I would love to sit down and talk with him about how he was managed to do all of that. I would also love to talk to Babe Ruth. I'm a huge baseball fan, always have been, and I really want to know if he really pointed at the seats and called a shot.
The question is, how do you just limit down to one person? Since we have to make decisions, I would just, again, my love of nature, would be Jane Goodall, and I am pleased to say that I did have the pleasure of meeting her. At the time, she's my icon, being that she is just a true believer. She's a grassroots person, just a hard worker, started with nothing and worked her way up to PhD and above and beyond. She was out for humankind as well as our beloved chimpanzees. So I had the pleasure of meeting her several years ago back at UWM. I have a strong animal background, so I, again, was able to listen to her forum, and it was fascinating. And I do have to add that it is on my list of books that I read besides Patrick Swayze.
I'm afraid I'm not going to be very imaginative with this one. I finished reading the book Lincoln. I'm reading all of the series of books. And having read the book Lincoln and watched the movie Lincoln, I'm rather fascinated by how he handled the Civil War. And the more you read about him, the more complex he got. And he's just kind of more interesting than what I thought when I first began the book Lincoln. And so I guess I would choose Lincoln. There's so many people. I just can't tell you who I'd like to meet. There's just too many people. So but because I just finished Lincoln, I suppose it'd be Lincoln.
Thank you.
Our next question will be from Brett Scarpaci.
Which aspects of your high school experiences were most and least agreeable?
I was fortunate to be able to be involved in a lot of different things in high school. Theater, sports, forensics, whatever it was, I probably did it. I wanted to try everything. That helped make me the person that I am now, having the opportunity to experience all those different things and meet people of all different socioeconomic backgrounds, people who I might not have walked down the halls with normally, but I got the chance to get to know. That was a hugely rich experience for me that I would not trade that. I went to a school in the city of Milwaukee, and it was fantastic. It was the perfect opportunity for me, perfect experience. What I liked the least, sometimes going to a school in the middle of Milwaukee, where budget is always an issue, and you're always fighting to keep the good teachers. I was fortunate to have some fantastic ones, but I would have loved to have seen the really good ones last longer.
My memory it's been a fantastic ride, so to speak. I again grew up in West Allis, and I'm remaining in West Allis. So I look back with great pride on my education at Frank Lloyd Wright and at Nathan Hale. And I work in the recreation department, and I'm still going to Hale, coaching with the gymnastics. And so what I like to say about that is that I still feel pride when I walk in there. I can hear some of the walls echoing, but with that, there are still some tried and true good things, and that's what I want to keep up. I want to keep it a positive school, positive image. Some of the downfalls with school, it might have just been, this is our next transition into the real life. So again, you're somewhat sheltered for years going through elementary, middle school, high school, and then by the time you get to high school, it's like, ooh, the real life kicks in. So just planning earlier so that the children feel more prepared for the real life.
I had a terrible experience in school. I was a terrible student. I was not very good. There is no person that knew me in school that would imagine me on a school board. I was not a good student. I struggled every step of the way. I struggled through school. I attempted to go on to school and took some classes, and I struggled through those. I learned the hard way about, sometimes women talk about the glass ceiling. I had the cement ceiling, where if you don't have a sound education, how difficult it is to work your way up. For me, I had to work 10 hours to get the same income that somebody else did. I worked very long hours, and I worked when I was in school, and after school, I had to work twice as hard to work my way up to get promotions. I struggled, and I think that's what makes me a little better board member, is I know the value of education, and I know the handicap of what it is not to have it.
I'm a graduate of West Allis Central High School, the one that used to be at 76th and National. It is no longer there. It was a 2-mile walk for me every day, there and back. That's the thing I don't enjoy. and because it limited my ability to participate in after-school activities. I would have liked to participate in a lot more sports, but that was a definite downfall. During the school day, the electives were my world. Academics were fine. I did well in them. I'm not outstanding, but well. But I really loved the elective areas so that you could find a purpose to what you were learning academically. What did you need as you looked at those elective areas and what you were going to be as you left school?
Our next question will be from Katie Tour.
If you could change one thing about West Allis, what would it be?
Off the top of my head, I don't have any changes of West Allis. I think we are a hard-working community. What I would like to see is a little bit more community effort and coming together between community and school and parents. So, I mean, as you say, change, I would just like to see us work even closer and even be more tight-knit. Again, I'm tried and true West Allisite, and I'd like to really expand on the strengths that the city already has. What I think it would be neat would be, again, with the children, getting their early education and realizing that from early on, from grade school, middle school to high school, that's really going to be your potential for life after. And so again, we need to just keep on through the schools and the recreation departments, taking all our skills and our talents and really defining them and really backing up our kids and supporting them.
I love West Allis, West Milwaukee. We moved here, and I honestly think of it as a little bit like Andy of Mayberry type. It maybe because I came from the northeast side of Milwaukee, where people really didn't know their neighbors very well. I know all my neighbors, and I love living here. I love the soccer teams. I love the music. I really enjoy it. I go out for a walk and I would run into the mayor. I love where I live, and I'm happy with it. Would we hope to maybe revitalize the city and modernize it a little bit, or maybe make it more historic? I'm not sure. I think that's what we pay the big bucks for the city to do, and we at the school board, we are trying to connect and do a better job connecting with the school board, with the city, with the police, with the fire department. So, but I see it as a community. I love this community.
I'm a lifelong resident of West Allis, and I too love this community. I think it's been a very big disappointment to see the demise of Alice Chalmers and how it changed the face of this community, and what struggles we've had to revitalize it. So how it looks today is very different than it once looked. It still has a very homegrown charm about it. I'd like to see the downtown area continue to improve and make gains that could make it our hub more so than Highway 100. I guess that it's just a disappointment to me that we can't do more to keep that focus on the downtown West Allis area. But I'd love the community regardless.
I moved to West Allis just over 12 years ago, and I'm positive it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. I love this community. I'm so glad that it's embraced me. I love everyone that I've met. It's been a fantastic place to live and to raise my son. What impresses me about West Allis is people don't want to leave. They live here their lives, they get married, they have their own families, and they want to stay here. They want to raise their children here. They want their children to go to school here. They want to conduct business here. And I think that says a lot about the strengths of this community. The one thing that we're in the middle of a lot of revitalization with National Avenue. We're looking at, things on Highway 100, the downtown area. There's a lot going on here. And I hope my one change or thing that I hope comes with that is the perception of West Allis, that West Allis is a fantastic community. I am a huge defender of West Allis when it comes up, and it does come up, but there's so much that this community has to offer. I hope that the perception gets stronger.
Our next question will be asked by Brett Scarpese.
Who's first?
What, in your opinion, is the role of the United States on a global scale?
What? You're going to Madison, huh? Do you want to repeat that?
What, in your opinion, is the role of the United States on a global scale?
We are a leader. We have been a leader for a very long time. We have been respected throughout the world, which puts us in an interesting place. Because we're multicultural and we're so diverse, we have a respect for all of the cultures throughout the world. We've been considered the protector of freedom, of democracy, of really caring for all peoples, no matter whom they might be, no matter what religion or what race. We have been the belief that all people are equal. And so I don't know how to answer that other than the fact that if that's what you believe, is that we're all equal and we're all good people, then we have to care for all people, and we are the world's caretakers.
I think about the United States being the innovation leader of the world. It's not much anymore about how much we produce. It's about our brain power, our intellectual qualities, our ability to think outside the box, dream, and make dreams come true. We have some of the most interesting and highly successful people in the world when you look at Bill Gates and the technology world specifically. There's so many more. We're the innovators, and we really need to look at that, especially you as a youth, and see what opportunities there are for you to expand your mind and change the world.
I think the role of the United States constantly changes. I think that there have been many times in history where we have been those leaders, and we've been those that have been called upon to help negotiate and to help develop technologies. I think right now we're a little behind on some things, and I want to be caught up. I don't want to be, by pride, I don't want the United States to fall behind. I think there's a tendency to think that the United States is number one in a lot of different things or in everything. And there, in truth, there is some things that we do need to catch up on. We need to make sure that we're giving our students the tools that they need to continue that rich history of the United States as a global power and as someone who is globally respected. And to continue that. And right now, I think we're slipping a little behind, and I'd like to see the United States regain that.
A simplistic answer to that, if there could be one, is you can be anything you want here. We have all the resources, we have the education, we are the leaders, and so I look out at you guys. It's in your hands. With that being said, we're given many opportunities here. And we can learn from each other. And I think that's the key point is, what is the priority? What are the tools that it's going to take to get us to where we need to go even further? We are a leader. However, with that being said, we need to choose carefully.
Our next question is from Courtney Hall.
Would you support a reintroduction of cursive writing at the elementary school level? Why or why not?
Ms. Kern, you'll start.
I think it's important to learn, but there are so many choices when it comes to what we have to teach. With each year that passes, there is that much more that has to be taught. And we may not focus on as much as we'd like to be, and I think the technology world is really driving the issue of pulling away from cursive. Because if you start thinking about how much you see in print, what tools you're using as you write technologically, that's where the shift is moving from cursive to print. And we found some creative ways to put it into place in the, where parents may not feel where there's enough offered within the classroom. The recreation department is doing that. But I think we certainly could have focused a little more time on it, but I think we're going to have to be careful about the choice.
Yes, I do think it's important for students to learn how to write in cursive. I think it's important to read cursive, and that there's different styles of cursive amongst different people, and for students to learn how to read and write it. But as Ms. Kern said, there are limited hours in a day. We want to make sure that students are well-rounded and they're learning how to do this. But as the shift does go to a more printed-based curriculum, we want to make sure that they have opportunities to read that as well. So I would want to make sure that that is being taught, but maybe less of an emphasis.
Well, I don't know how far this is going to date me, but I tell you, when I was in elementary school, I'm a lefty, and I was persuaded to try to use my right hand. So, true story. What I find with that is, no, we need to embrace cursive writing. We don't need to take the whole curriculum to do so. It can be worked in. I know when my daughter, she was in 3rd grade, and she told me a story. We were going to go out, we were going to learn cursive, but then they said, oh, we're going to discontinue it and go out and on the playground instead. So again, what I'm presenting to you is the choices and the options. We learned when I was in school to write cursive writing, but I'm just trying to present to you, look, they were trying to change even my method of going from right to left, which I think is absurd. The other thing is, we need to get back to the basics. Just simple things as signing a check. Yes, you do need cursive. And last but not least, Digital learning too. Children are learning time on a clock. My girls and their friends are so used to looking at digital clocks. So writing is important, reading, and telling time, the basics.
Yes, I do think that they need to teach Cursive. And I think that it should be taught, it should be strengthened. I think there's something to the fact that it gives you time to think when you're writing out things. So I think that a greater emphasis should be put on teaching our students to write. They are not always going to have a computer or an iPad and or a cell phone to text out what they want to say. So you need to be able to put your thoughts together, and you need to be able to write creatively. Having said that, most people want their communications in text, and their students, their whatever reports in text. So it's a computerized world, and it's a technological world. So you're going to need both. But yes, I think that people need to learn to write.
Thank you.
Our next question will be asked by Amy Lopez.
Students are presently allowed to turn in assignments from prior quarters and still earn credit. Should students who do not complete schoolwork on time have that opportunity?
Ms. Emmons, you'll start.
That's tough. I would say, my experience at the grade school level, that isn't really an issue. In high schools, there's a lot of mitigating circumstances that go into why somebody wouldn't or couldn't complete an assignment. I don't know that that can be a standard answer. I think that there are always going to be extenuating circumstances, and it's up to the teacher and that particular teacher to work with the student to figure out what those circumstances are and whether or not that they will accept that classwork.
All right, I'm sorry. The age-old, the dog ate my homework. I don't think that works anymore, does it? With that being said, back when I was in school or even early on with my daughter in elementary, it was a deadline is a deadline. So with missing work, I know it's important to have everything updated and that the students are learning at their different levels. But I think it's a fine line. I really do. And I think it has to be drawn of, what is the assignment length? Is it, again, is it the majority of the class? So I think individually it has to be assessed differently.
You're talking about late homework. That was the question. Should we be able to accept late homework?
Assignments.
And there are circumstances. Obviously, you have to weigh the circumstances if there's health issues or family issues. I mean, we're a caring people, and barring that exception of extenuating circumstances, no. I think that our students need to learn that in the real world, when they leave school, you have to be at your job on time. There are expectations in the real world, and we are not doing our students a favor by saying, well, it can be done today or tomorrow. That isn't how the real world works. And so, no, I know that we're working on a grading program right now, and I'm finished.
I agree with Sue. I think to set the deadlines are important, to get the full value of the credit for what you're accomplishing by handing it in on time is what should be achieved. I can't imagine you're very pleased when you find out that you've done your assignment on time and 30% of the class has not, and they all get the same grade that you do. There is a value to doing your work on time, learning the discipline, and making sure that as you go out into the work world, you're going to have those deadlines, you're going to have to meet them, and we need to set that discipline starting with schools.
Our last question will be asked by Charles Ringart.
What, if anything, needs to be done about our student and staff safety?
Safety comes first. Part of the problem right now that I see is overcapacity in the schools. If a child is not in a safe environment, they're not going to learn, they're not going to flourish, their concentration is going to be down. So we need to put different precautionary things in measure. I know right now we have, alarm systems, we have cameras, we have systems to buzz in. So I, again, endorse that. We have to continue. There in society, there's been just too many harms, too much harm done to schools and school children. So again, we might be able to look at another idea of I think we do canine units as well for certain issues. But again, we need to look at what we're doing and just continue it and go full force ahead.
Well, there's different types of safety, and school safety, whether it's, safety, the building code safety and that type of safety. And then there's the safety of discipline. And if you're talking about discipline, where students are acting up, I think that we do need to have a stronger sense of discipline in our schools. I think that goes back to the question that was asked previously. In the real world, there are rules, there are regulations, there are things that you must follow. And I think that we need to have a stronger sense of discipline in our schools. So if your question is regard of safety in the sense of discipline, I think more can be done. As far as, and that would be just caring for our teachers, our staff. As far as safety in building codes and what have you, we're always trying to improve the safety for our schools.
On the topic of safety, that's correct. We have grants given to us every year to improve the safety, the climate of the buildings. Notice that if you're worried about the situation of intruders coming into the building, causing harm to people, we're now down to one entrance per building that is mandatory to come in and leave by, and the cameras and security systems that have been put in place to make sure the students feel safe. If it is about student discipline, also I think there's room for improvement. I'm not happy with the PBIS program, and I think there are better ways, especially as we get to the middle and high school level, where we can work out discipline issues, and it requires consequences. And I think that's my greatest concern about it, is there are not enough consequences for bad behavior. And I think we want to make sure that classrooms are ones that are conducive to learning, and where students aren't behaving themselves in the classroom, aren't paying attention, or sleeping in the classroom, the engagement is lost. So that's something where I think we'd like to focus a little more attention on. I think both are equally valuable and need some consideration of improving.
Each one of our teachers and students deserve to go to a building every day where they feel safe, where they feel physically safe, where they feel like they have the authority, where the teachers have the authority to discipline when needed, to ensure that the students in their classroom are safe, to ensure that the students in their classroom are getting a quality education every day that they come to school. The buildings themselves obviously have their own sets of safety procedures in place, cameras, people answering the doors, locked buildings, which is fantastic. That can always be tightened, can always be improved. It would have to be an ongoing process to review. In terms of in the classroom, yes, the staff and teachers have to have that authority to discipline when needed and to enforce the consequences and to tighten up those consequences so that there is repercussions. If you act out in class, if you are a disciplinary issue in class, you have to pay for that. There's actions that go along with that. And we want to make sure that all of our teachers have that ability so that they go to school feeling safe every day and that they feel like they have a voice in their own classroom.
Thank you.
Since we're running low on time, you will each be given 1 minute for a final statement. Ms. Sujecki, you can start.
Well, thank you. Thank you to all the students. You had really great questions. A few were stumpers. And I just, I'm not going to read my thing. Right now is a turbulent time. We're in the process of hiring a superintendent. We're in the process of making some changes. We're in the process of trying to incorporate technology into our curriculum. There are so many important issues that are in the district, not excluding the Hale Central boundaries issues and all of the other issues. I am acutely aware of how important what we do and how it affects your life. I really want to be able to provide the best education for your future. My son's got a very good education in West Allis, and I want you to have a very good education.
Ms. Kern?
As a lifelong resident of the district and one whose family has all come through this school system, we are believers in public education, and it is a pleasure to serve that public education by bringing about ideas and decisions that will hopefully continue to make the school a better place to be for all of you. I have enjoyed my time on the board. I've been on it for 24 years. I hope that the experiences that I have learned will serve the board well as I continue to run for it again on this term. And it has been a pleasure to be with you today and hear your voice. Too often, we don't hear the voice of the students. I think that's one of the vital things we need to get back to is listening sessions with the students, and I'm delighted to see the Youth Commission still actively involved and holding forums like this. I was a founding member of the Youth Commission back when Jeanette Bell started it, and I see great value to it, and you have demonstrated that value today with the session that we have had here. Thank you very much.
Ms. Emmons?
Again, thank you. Your questions were amazing. I would have loved that opportunity in high school to have gotten to sit and interview school board members. You guys are doing a fantastic job, and I wish you all the best in your next path. As I mentioned, I'm not a lifelong resident of West Allis, but I'm so pleased that I'm here now. I'm pleased in the trust that people have given me so far and the encouragement to sit here today and try to be a voice for families and teachers who feel they haven't been heard, who feel they're not being listened to. As Ms. Sujecki said, there are a lot of issues going on in this district right now. And there's a lot of research that needs to be done before solutions are enacted. There's a lot of planning that needs to happen. There's a new superintendent coming, hopefully very soon. I look forward to having the opportunity to work with him on guiding this district, enacting policies that are going to benefit you, the generations that will come after you, and that will empower this district into the next, just ongoing. There's a lot of great things here in West Allis and a lot of things in the district, but it really needs to be fine-tuned, and it needs a new voice to help pull it all together.
Ms. Dubois?
Well, I'd like to give you your graduation speech early. And with that being said, you're our future. You're in West Allis. One thing that I think is really important that still rings true to me is what my mom taught, besides many other things that she taught me, was education is something they can never take away from you. And it still rings true to me, and I love that. So when things got tough, maybe with the test, or when I went on to college, and I wanted to call her and cry and say I had an exam, it all went back to, it's something they can't take away from you. You will always have it for your future children, for your future job. What you learned now in school is going to be really beneficial to building your families, your friendships, your careers. So take it seriously, but by all means, have fun with it too.
Thank you for your time and answering our questions. Best of luck in your elections.
Thank you.
Thank you.